In the documentary about Latinos in media, it begins with talking about how Latinos with dignity were not shown, and that in the 80s and 90s they had fake accents and were very over the top, even though Hispanics were at least 16% of the population at the time that this was recorded. Hispanics usually are grouped together, they described, with everyone from Latin American countries. That includes South America, Central America. Most kids can't think of any good or bad main characters that were Latinx. And in Ken Burns' documentary about baseball players, which, as a baseball fan myself, there's a lot of Latino baseball players. In the 18 hours of programming, only 5 to 6 minutes were about Latino players, and you're leaving out greats like David Ortiz, Barry Bonds. But, and then in the same documentary about World War II, he failed to mention, or in another documentary about World War II, Ken Burns fails to mention any Latinos, even though they had won the most awards out of any ethnic group during the war. It then turns to most news coverage is of illegal immigrants and how crime is committed by Latinos. The portrayal of Latinos is always like the prey, and the cops are always out to catch the aliens. Mexican Americans, and immigrants were all being treated as the same group, whether or not they were different. The news media doesn't differentiate between the groups. Latino stories were told by white writers, white actors, and sometimes they would put on brown faces. The Mark of Zorro in 1940 was a big movie of its time where Don Diego was played by Caucasian actor Tyrone Power. But Latinos aren't alone, as white people have played Arabs, Africans, indigenous peoples, African Americans, and Asians. Many other prominent movies like Scarface and Nacho Libre have had white people play Latinos with exaggerated accents. Ramon from Happy Feet was played by Robin Williams. Many Hispanic animated characters are played by white actors. More examples include Consuela by Family Guy was voiced by Mark Henry, and Carlos in Hop was played by Hank Azaria. Pancho Villa, a well-known revolutionary figure, was played by two white actors in two separate movies, Wallace Beery and Telly Savalas, in two separate periods, also being offered to Johnny Depp. Emiliano Zapata was played by Marlon Brando. And the soloist, Puerto Rico journalist Steve Lopez is represented by Robert Downey Jr. Eduardo Saverin, one of the founders of Facebook, was Brazilian and was represented by British Andrew Garfield on The Social Network. Argentina's president, Juan Perón, was played by Jonathan Pryce, and his first lady was played by Madonna. White men directed 77% of primetime episodes, even though only 1/3 of the population of Los Angeles is white, and 50% is Latina, yet only 1% work in the film industry. The documentary goes on to describe how most Hispanics don't know how to play Hispanic characters because the characters that are played in the movies are so made up and fake. It started in the 1900s with stereotypes like the lazy Mexican and the Latin lover, and also included the subservient working class man and woman. But the worst image was the violent Latino criminal, which began with Bronco Billy and the Greaser, which was a term used disparagingly against Hispanic people. Pancho Villa was played as a hobbling drunk, yet he didn't even drink and was immaculately dressed. The image of Mexican revolutionary men and women fighting for their own political and social freedom was flipped into the bandito stereotype. Frito Bandito was a stereotyped bandit who would steal chips. In Red River, the John Wayne character finds land in southern Texas and takes it from the owner by killing him. All the bandits were really just defending their land that they had been taken, but it was just up to the media to show how the conquest of Mexican territory was justified because they weren't people. As the documentary continues, it describes how over time Mexican bandits have been phased out of most pop culture, but they would rather come and show the narco boss Latino, but mostly sold urban criminal and gangbanger stereotypes. When Yancy Arias had to play a kidnapping killer with heart, when he tried to play a kidnapping killer with heart, they cut out all the lines and left in his role as a brutal murderer. Latino men have been presented as hyper-violent and barbaric. Latinas have been portrayed as hypersexual and volatile. Latinas have also been portrayed as angry, sexually promiscuous women or prostitutes, as many roles in the industry go to Latinas as maids and prostitutes. Many directors want the angry, hypersexual Hispanic lady. Another stereotype is the Latina maid, usually always trying to hook up with the man of the house. Lupe Ontiveros estimated she played a maid 187 times. The most remarkable or highest grossing Latina actors are usually ones with brighter skin like J-Lo or Cameron Diaz. And Mexican men are still seen as lawbreakers, and Mexico is seen as a violent place full of endless pressure. Cartoons with the animated voices and over-the-top stereotypes also don't help when it comes to advancing Latino media. Even as late as 2012, Work It, the Puerto Rican character, think he's a right fit for a job because it involves selling drugs. I mean, they're not trying to hide it anymore, or they've never tried to hide it. The hate against the Latinx community, the documentary continues, has always been targeted, but as more Latinos move into the film industry, as the documentary ends on a high point, they hope that they can make an impact and tell the real stories of Latinx and Latino culture.